you have a classic car?
No, I have a wall of cars that I want to have.
(911) That was like the ultimate favorite car.
Teslas are very impressive cars. I'm very impressed.
Holy shit. Like we're going, 110 miles an hour in.
I'll give you a ride in my Tesla 3. Hopefully our editor's having fun with our pre-chats.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Design Under Influence. Here I am. Here's Willard, and we're ready to dive deeper into 10 Commandments. We call it 10 Commandments, right, Willard?
Yes, sir.
He is an expert in architecture as well as technology, converting from AutoCAD to ArchiCAD. I knew I'm going to mess this one up one of these shows. This is the one. Yeah, and I am, I work for ArchiT. We are an IT company that helps architecture firms deal with technology. We do all that mess. We set up, make sense of all that technology mess, and make you very effective, efficient, so you can focus on doing your best work. We do technology, but today Willard's going to help us dive into the 10 commandments of converting to a modern system to improve your business. Go to ArchiCAD. We covered number one last show, where we talked about what do we talk about? Evaluating the project requirements, kind of step one. Yep. Today we're going to dive into training and I can't say this. Familiarization. You do it.
Familiarization. I can't do it either. Familiarization. I have to really
do we
try
have
on
like
that
like a cinnamon? That's another one.
Yeah, maybe.
Training and getting to know the system. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, and so that's an important step. You think about any. Well, give me a second to kind of like lead this in. Think about any software implementation. I've spent my life in software deployments, sales, service, upgrades, all that stuff, in multiple industries. And the kind of first thing that usually, kind of the first block you hit whenever you are rolling out any new piece of software is sort of resistance from your team. Okay, this is sort of very, very normal for us humans to sort of cling to the usual, what we know, and be very, very afraid of what may happen if we change things and we're no longer needed. And so that's kind of natural for us to be that. So expect it. And I think this particular step 2 in training, is this sort of unlocking that fear in your folks, in your team, which can essentially break. I've seen, I don't know, Willard, if you've seen, but like in manufacturing, we used to have a product lifecycle management software that we ran for a company I worked before. And there would be failed implementations due to engineers just simply refusing to migrate from Excel to this more sophisticated bill of material software. And threatening to quit and doing all those things. So that's a little, I don't know if you have a little bit of, I guess, advice on how to approach this. Because I think maybe if we can package today's show into your advice when it comes to creating a customized program, but also how do you make your people feel less threatened and more excited about this implementation? So small challenge for you there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you have to really be cognizant of, and I think you were touching on it, is that there is a high level of resistance, especially I think as people are more seasoned in their career or more experienced in their practice or whatever it might be, to switching to a new platform or a new paradigm. But I think the one thing that you probably could do is make it fun. make it
Mm.
a game and take out the stress, because I think on one end, people are more concerned about, A, job security, B is productivity with respect to their tasks. And if they feel that, you know, that they are not going to, you know, if they feel like there's a possibility that, um, by them not adopting a new methodology, that they could get, let go or something like that, that can create kind of a stress. Or if they feel like their project delivery time frame and adherence to getting their projects, into the city or wherever it is, could be threatened by having to learn a new application. You have to be able to kind of sort those out and make it fun. And one way I think that making it fun is kind of try to take out as much stress as possible. And one way would be, instead of focusing on production ready kind of projects to focus on in the training aspect, do something fun. Make a building that is totally separated, maybe from what you are tasked with on a daily basis. So, making a doghouse or making one of those cat tree stands or something like that, where people can focus on the learning objectives and doing something that's a little bit funner for the time that they're spending on it.
Wow. I didn't expect this kind of advice. This is really good advice. So yeah, instead of doing production ready stuff, build something like in Fantasyland, something cool that everybody's passionate about. How do you decide? Have you like overseen? I know you help with these implementations and rollouts of ArchiCAD. Do you have an example maybe of what you've seen that worked well?
Well, the one that I used in my own kind of self-taught experience, and I don't know if it's still available, but there used to be a very small building that was on ArchiCAD's website as like a kind of a training module of some sort, and it was just a fun little outhouse kind of building, or like a maybe even like a bathhouse. But I would take it to the level of, is there something fun that you want to create? A beach house, a house that is, or like a dog house or something of that nature. Just keep it light, keep it fun. And once I think you get rid of the stress, and I probably there's something more scientific about this, and I'm gonna probably speak in an area that I'm not an expert in, but I think that there's, this flight or fight or freeze kind of aspect where, the brain is producing cortisol or something of that nature. And your ability to learn new things is reduced because you're in a state of panic or fear. And once you kind of get through that, or mitigate that initial kind of biological response to being put into a situation that's unknown, you're going to get both a higher rate of adoption, a higher rate of retention, and potentially a higher rate of just overall satisfaction. And what I've seen is, if you have individuals or groups that are focusing on things that are a little bit more pleasurable in terms of working on something that's outside of your normal day-to-day stuff, then you have basically decimated that fight or flight kind of response. And now you have a group that is going to be able to retain and reproduce the kind of learning objectives that you set out. And just kind of tangentially, what I find is that there is also there is also a potential that you can understand the platform that you're diving into a little bit more clearly, because if you kind of push the envelope. And just an example is that in college, I was using ArchiCAD exclusively, and there was nobody around that was using it. And so I was kind of, out there in the water by myself. But one of the things that when I was in school was coming, being leveraged more was like CNC machines or laser cutting. And some of the projects that everybody else was, or some of the projects other students were creating, were these very fantastical projects that you couldn't construct necessarily very easily, or you couldn't even build a model for very easily unless you had like a 3D printer, which wasn't really something that was being leveraged at that time. So long story short is there is kind of a push learning objective when you start to kind of get outside of your comfort level, but you're still inside of a comfortable area that that could help you or your team understand how to potentially use the tool in a way that you're not necessarily using tools presently. And just to kind of get back to that college example, is that I had a project that was kind of unique shape, but it was built in ArchiCAD, so it was kind of adhering to some of the physics and kind of design requirements of an actual built kind of environment. But I wanted to laser cut it, and since I didn't have any kind of peers that were doing this same workflow, I had to figure out how to create laser cut ready files in the software. And that actually helped me understand the platform a little bit better. But then also, when I went to that extreme or that production method or fabrication method, I was able to step back and things became much more easy to digest in terms of producing construction documents or understanding the workflow or the software. So kind of a long story, but again, just making it fun, finding examples of things that you can kind of let loose with and not make it too stressful.
Yeah. So if you drive a Prius every day, let's say that's your day-to-day job, you find yourself in somebody's house where they have set up a full setup, chair, wheel, everything for the new Gran Turismo game, let's say. What are the chances you're going to pick Prius to race around with while you have like 20, 30 minutes to check out this game? No, you're going to pick the fastest freaking Ferrari or GT Cup, Porsche or something like that, and play around with it, get a sense of it. And the physics are right. These new games are amazing, by the way. I don't want to go there, but it's a software. It's the same concept. If I drive a Prius, am I going to take a Prius? You can, and I believe in Gran Turismo, but like, why?
Well,
you would race around in a Prius.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example, because when you get into some of these supercars in those games, which, these $1 million plus vehicles that you wouldn't have access to, normally. And then the physics of these games are just so amazing. The graphics are, almost realistic. You have that sandbox to play in, and I would almost tangentially say that you become a better driver in the real world, because you have driven this 1,200 horsepower, hyper supercar or whatever they call them. And now you have, you're hitting the turn a little bit better in your Prius, you're not braking as much or braking in the turn or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's a great example of how you can have fun, do something that you might not normally be doing, and learn a lot about what it is your potential limits are.
Yeah 100%. So let's dive deeper into this. Maybe, I don't know if you can split it into 1, 2, 3. That's always seemed to be helpful for folks to have ABC or 1, 2, 3 steps to creating that customized training program to help with this. So a fantasy building that your team agrees on, that everybody wants to kind of contribute to. I think that's a fantastic idea. What are some of the other pieces to this training puzzle?
Well, I think first and foremost, when you're coming from AutoCAD to ArchiCAD or kind of any kind of platform, is understanding kind of the environment, what you're working with. Maybe even more granularly, it's like the physics of the game or the experience that you're about to undertake, and what that really means in kind of ArchiCAD adoption is, you know, it's not just it, well, it is a tool, but it is a tool that is more robust than what you have experienced. So I think one thing is understanding what BIM is or what parametric technology is, and then getting a base level understanding of why it is important to expand your understanding of the technology and why you're kind of going down this path. Um, and then, so first is understanding what parametric technology is. Second would probably be understanding what the differences are between AutoCAD and ArchiCAD, kind of in a more macro kind of approach. And then second or third would be training and kind of assessment, potentially certification, so that you're rounding out kind of each of the phases. So, first would be understanding the platform, what it is that you're trying to achieve in terms of the technology, what its capabilities are, how it potentially differs from previous experiences that you've had, and then assessing your understanding and implementing your understanding and learning into an environment that's fun and interactive and provides you kind of the sandbox to be able to be creative and explore the possibilities.
Yeah. Do you expect like a principal or principals to be able to have to do this? Or is this more of a consultant role, such as ArcIT or yourself, if we are, coaching the implementation? Who actually does this? This sounds like you need to understand both systems to really kind of really have answers.
Yeah, I think it is always really beneficial for leadership to have a deeper understanding of the tools that they are requiring their team to be leveraging. And I think the experiences that I've had both personally and professionally, where the leadership understands the application or the software and is also potentially using it in a production manner, I find that the rest of the team is way more engaged and able to digest the information. And then I also think that it provides a good platform for leadership to know the frustrations intimately that the team might have with kind of converting. Um, but ultimately, I think that these type of implementations, even if you have like an experienced user or someone who's knowledgeable about the application itself, ArchiCAD, I think it's always good to bring somebody else in, whether that's for, a half day or, maybe a longer kind of shadowing experience, to assist and maybe augment the internal team, but also provide kind of the data rich experience that the kind of trainer might be bringing to the table. Because I've seen that where there's like an embedded BIM manager or an embedded guru, but they are also focused on solving problems internally, production, or anything of that nature. So it's always good to bring somebody else in who can either just be a counselor, be that, have that couch that, the BIM manager can go lay on and talk about all their problems. And also potentially augment the training protocols and the assessment, and then facilitate, the files, and provide that kind of hands-on or hand-in-hand kind of approach to training.
Okay. How many hours of training should we expect that will take for an average AutoCAD user to get fairly proficient, not professional, fairly proficient with ArchiCAD?
So I don't know how I came up with this metric, but I was training a lot of people at this one organization who were, of different experience levels with different applications. And what I found is that for somebody who is coming from an AutoCAD or SketchUp kind of background with limited parametric experience, it was roughly 2 4-hour sessions with some homework and, some assignments and things like that. Maybe some, extracurricular, not necessarily extracurricular, but videos and things like that would supplement those additional. So 4 hours, 2 4-hour sessions. So maybe a few hours of videos and kind of independent research and homework. And then I found that people who were coming from Revit required probably half that time, because I guess the fortunate thing that Revit is so clunky and so painful to use that once people jump into ArchiCAD, it's like they have been released from the bondage of pain and torture, and they are able to, and it was really amazing to think that, like, somebody who's been using Revit for 10 years and has never touched ArchiCAD, within 4 hours, they were as competent and productive as they were in Revit with this new application now. And even more so was the fact that they were more efficient, more effective than they were with Revit within 4 hours with ArchiCAD. So it was It was pretty amazing to see how easy it was for people who were coming from other BIM applications to use ArchiCAD, and how effective they were. And I think a lot of it's just based on, ArchiCAD being nearly 40 years old, and also having developed their user interface inside of, I think, an Apple-based OS system initially. Maybe that had something to do with it, but they are definitely able to feel a lot more comfortable, a lot happier, satisfied, and able to be a lot more productive really quickly.
I mean, what else can you ask for?
Nothing. Nothing.
We have completed. We have completed this episode, right? Have we? Any other piece of wisdom before we? Well, the next one we're going to cover. The next episode we're going to cover deeper. We're going to go into depth on differences between AutoCAD and ArchiCAD, and how to understand that as an organization. I think you've mentioned this here, but we're going to sort of unpack this in more detail, correct?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add as a parting advice or words of wisdom for creating a training program for those who are converting to ArchiCAD?
Yeah. So I think that, like, not to be too long-winded, but Graphisoft and ArchiCAD have some example files on their website. And if you're considering or exploring the potential of leveraging ArchiCAD in your practice, whether you're a sole proprietor or you're in a firm with 20 to 30 people, and you are just curious about it, I would recommend downloading the demo software through ArchiCAD. And then I'd also recommend looking at the example files that they provide, because they have a number of different example files. And then lastly, as you're kind of exploring this, I would familiarize yourself with the forum that they have. Um, and because I was, almost exclusively self-taught, I really didn't have anybody to train me or explore. So I got really good at trying to figure out how to solve problems outside of asking somebody, I guess. So the forum for me was one of the more critical kind of components to me being able to understand the application. And then I think probably the last thing that I would do is once you get the demo kind of software installed and there's a help area and it's like a 4,000 page document, but it's searchable. And it's a really great document. So if you are curious about something that, how do I create line work or how do I create like a fill and things like that, the help documentation that comes with ArchiCAD is very good. And it's almost something that you want to keep like easily accessible. And then the very last piece of this kind of, what is it? The second commandment of training familiarization. And this is a top secret that I used and have been using as a training methodology. And it's going to sound really basic, but inside of ArchiCAD, there's the work environment, which I think it's under the options or something of that nature. But basically, you get to the shortcuts, and there's an ability for you to print out all the shortcuts. And what I did when I was out in my learning in isolation period of life, I printed out the shortcuts. And what I found is that if I kept that near my work area, I would highlight the ones that I knew. But what that did for me was there was shortcuts in there that I never knew about and didn't necessarily need to access per se. But what it did is it created this level of curiosity where it would say like, oh, you can do this command if you push, this combination of buttons. And then I would be like, oh, what is that? What is that command? And it allowed me to kind of do a, what is that called when you, they're the books that you choose your own adventure books where it's like go to page 100 if you want to, go into this tunnel, or go to page 200 if you want to go, up this ladder, kind of a role playing kind of like game.
They're calling computer games these days, Willard, but okay. Yeah.
But
We got your analogy.
But what it does or did for me was it did make it kind of like a game where I was learning how to play the game better or what was possible within the game. And maybe I was in a really different place in life where I needed to role play inside of a design software or something in that nature. But I found it really was really helpful in me absorbing the information and learning a lot about how to be more efficient and what the possibilities were in within the software.
That's actually brilliant advice. In fact, I might apply to other similar situations where I'm learning new software, new tool set, new something. Because if you think about it, the software team and the product management and all that, when they built the software, what's the most commonly used tools and functions? And then like, okay, let's make a shortcut for it because we had a lot of user requests that. So what you did, you've accessed like the cream of the creme de la creme of this software functionality that all the professionals wanted to have available to them in a shortcut. Hundreds of them. And eventually the software team built those in. And you basically unlock that. All right. That's actually that is deeper than basic advice. That's actually very interesting. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I didn't expect you popping that one today.
Yeah. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Very cool. So after I said, hey, any last words of wisdom, you just dropped like a ton of it. Awesome. Yeah. So I appreciate it. This is very good. I think we gave people a lot to think about. I'm almost afraid to say any parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, I won't say anything more.
That's it. Let's keep something for the future. No, this is great advice. Well, I think we should repeat this in future episodes because not everybody listens to every episode. I think this is just so foundationally strong advice that I need to think more about this. Maybe come up with some other ideas along those lines. But
Maybe I'll say one other last piece is
of course
that
you will. Go ahead, please.
that there is another reason that I found why I gravitated towards the shortcut technique of printing them out and having them next to your desk. But I'll save that for another episode.
Oh, and you teased. My God, we're getting good at this. All right. Well, tune in next week or next couple of weeks, whenever the sequence is, or maybe, it's been a year and you just can binge watch or binge listen. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the episode. We are at ArchiT, getarchit.com. Check us out. You need help with converting AutoCAD to ArchiCAD. We're here to help. Willard's here to help. We can get you there, get you on the other side comfortably, successfully, with the minimum of disruption to your business. If you need IT help, we're at getarchit.com. Again, we focus and work with architecture companies only, engineers, designers to AEC, the whole world. So need help with IT, need to get it under control. We can help you with that. Willard, I appreciate your time. I think we all learned something every time you say something. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Yep. And I'll see you on the next show. Thanks a lot for watching. See you.
Thanks.